So thanks, Elena. You can start with your presentation.
I think I should be able to show it. Give me 1 second. Okay. And I think you can see it, right? Excellent. Okay. I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to be in the room with you, with everybody else, with all the speakers, but I hope everybody can hear me all right. Before I delve into what the Open Budget Survey and the Open Budget Index are, I should maybe give a little bit of an introduction of what the International Budget Partnership is. The IBP is the organization that I work for, and it's an international civil society organization that works around the world with other civil society groups, and it strengthens their budget analysis and advocacy skills. Why are we focusing on budgets? I think, because again, we're going back from something that was very concrete at Legambiente to something that's a little bit more theoretical, or it looks more abstract. But why are we focusing on budgets? As I think Luigi said earlier, we focus on budgets, we focus on money, because when we talk about public policy, we also need to know how much money is being spent on a particular policy and how that policy is being implemented, whether the money that is being allocated is actually being spent on that, and how the policy, if actually the project comes to conclusion or not, is the bridge being built or not. So this is why IBP focuses on budgets, and why we think that transparency in spending public budgets is essential for accountability, and why citizens' engagement to monitor how those policies are spent, are implemented, is also as essential. So why did we decide to develop the Open Budget Survey? And this is an international initiative. This is a survey that covers 100 countries. Italy is part of it, and we collaborate with Bilanciamoci on this. We've been doing this in the last 2 years. But the survey is, as I said, a global survey that is objective and independent, and it allows to measure 3 things. The first thing is transparency. And by that, we mean, can every citizen, a common citizen, get access to key national budget information? So we usually look at 8 key budget documents, and we ask, can anybody go to the relevant ministry or government institution, ask for that document, and receive that document? The second element that we look at is whether the public can actually participate during the budget process. So, when the budget is being planned, prepared, when it's being discussed by Parliament, when it's being implemented, and when it's being audited. Are there any spaces for the public to participate? And the third thing that we look at is whether the formal oversight institutions are strong enough to play their role of oversight. And the survey is based on international good practices developed by existing, long-lasting or institutions such as the IMF or the OECD and the INTOSAI. And there are other standards that have been more recently developed, more specifically on citizens' budgets, as well as public participation, that IBB has kind of helped shaping. And it's done every 2 years. So we've done 4 rounds of this survey. And as I said, Italy has been included in the last 2. And it's done every 2 years because it takes quite a bit of time to do. And I'll say a little bit more about how it's done now. This slide shows you a few numbers. And the first 100 is, as I said, the number of countries that are covered by this survey. And therefore, there's 100 researchers and specifically 100 civil society organizations that work in each of those countries that complete the questionnaire, that complete the survey. So we work with civil society. We make sure that the same organizations that want to monitor how transparent governments are also the ones that complete the Open Budget Survey. And I should also, actually stepping back, highlight why the survey was created and how it actually came together. It came together not just as a product of the International Budget Partnership, but as a request by some of the IBP's partners to know how transparent their governments were. Because one of the first challenges that they had in doing their budget, their monitoring work, one of the challenges that they had in monitoring the policies was that they didn't have enough data. So the first, let's say, idea that they had was, can we actually make sure that we can know how much transparency there is in those countries, in our countries, and also push for governments to become more transparent. So the survey is a research that collects data, but the idea is to collect data to push governments to become more transparent. And then you'll see there's a 20 in my slide here, which shows the number of months that it takes to do the survey, which leads to have 12,500 observations. This is something that my colleagues like very much to highlight. It's a big number. And there's around 18 staff members working on this, and a lot of people involved in this. So it feels that we're part of a network, of a community that pushes for greater transparency and participation. The data is objectively collected and independently collected, but it's very important for us to highlight the fact that the data has to be independent and also as objective as possible. So the questionnaire is a series of course, questions. It's 133 questions, but it's important that for every answer that is given to the questions, the researcher provides support for that answer. So there has to be a citation, a specific document, a page, a section of the document that shows the information that can support that answer. So it's not sufficient to say, oh, it has to be a B answer instead of an A. No, we need to know why and where the information has been found to support that answer. And so the civil society organizations in each country are the lead researchers. So in these steps, they're the first ones who complete the survey. Then we have to make sure that there is cross-country consistency and we can check the data against other existing data. But then we have also a third type of, or a second type of check, which is done by external reviewers that are, again, ideally civil society or academics who can provide an independent review of the questionnaire. And then, and here I think we can talk about the interaction or the interaction with the governments or the institutions that are being assessed. We give the chance to governments or the ministries that are being assessed to review the draft of the questionnaire. That doesn't mean that we're asking them to complete it for us, but for transparency's sake, once we have gone through the draft of the questionnaire, we're pretty sure about the results. We show the results to governments and see if they have any additional comments to make. We take, however, the privilege or we still have the decision-making power to say, well, those comments are not consistent with the methodology of the survey, therefore we're not going to take them into account. So the final word is on us and on our civil society partners. And then again, for transparency's sake, we publish all of the reports online it's an IBP's website, and I'll show you the website. Actually, it's at the bottom of the page, internationalbudget.org, which is I think missing. I'm not sure why. This is a map that shows the latest results of the Open Budget Index, and it might be confusing because I mentioned Open Budget Survey earlier, and now I'm saying Open Budget Index. The Open Budget Index is only focusing on the transparency part of the questionnaire. So when I said that we look at whether documents are publicly available, so anybody from the public can access those documents, I meant that. So the Open Budget Index looks at the timeliness and the comprehensiveness of these documents that should be published. And so we also look at public availability of those documents. And so you'll see that the blue countries are the ones that are best performing. The green ones are the ones that are second best. The red are the really, really bad ones. And then the yellow and the orange are the ones that are in the middle. And you'll see that Italy is right there in the middle. But we hope it's going to improve. And we're currently doing a new round of the survey. So we're not publishing the results until next year, but we are currently doing the research for the next round. And I should also think a little bit about why is the survey relevant, both at country-specific level, but also at international level. So in recent years, the Open Budget Survey results have received increased attention by many different stakeholders, being donors, being citizens themselves, organizations, governments. And in a way, there has been some sort of a competition by governments that have looked at their neighbors' scores and they've thought, oh, maybe we should improve and we should try and find a way to improve. So in a way, governments have felt the pressure, both internal and external. So internal, because again, the media have talked about it, and citizens, organizations mostly. I guess it's easier for a budget-focused organization to talk about these things, have put pressure on them. And so they felt the pressure to improve transparency. And they have often, or more often than in the past, come to us and our partners asking for advice. This is potentially problematic because when we say that the research has to be independent, we need to safeguard that independence. And so it's important, but it's also important for us to make sure that the opportunity is taken, because the governments want to improve. So we need to make sure that we can encourage them and show them how to improve. And so the conclusion, or the bottom line, is that during the research period, we don't interact with the governments, but then we also want to make sure that if we highlight certain gaps, and when we publish the results of the survey, we also want to show them how to improve and show them clear steps on how to do that. And it's also, I think, useful to highlight that the research has to be objective. But it's not just the fact that sometimes researchers are too friendly with the government, but it can also happen the opposite, right? So there is a negative bias towards a particular government. So again, making sure that for every answer there is a particular citation that supports that answer helps a lot in keeping the research objective, and also in giving credibility to the research, and making sure that the Open Budget Survey, which is for us, most importantly, a tool for dialogue between civil society and citizens and the government, that are being, evaluated. It's very important that this tool of dialogue can be considered credible, and therefore can be used to say, let's make sure that we highlight what's missing and we can improve transparency. And again, and in a secondary way, participation. And I'm saying in a secondary way because it's not as easy to push for participation than to push for transparency. Governments are much more open to that, to transparency, than to participation. But it's only the beginning. So, and it's also important to think that transparency and participation are essential, but they're not means in themselves. They're essential tools to ensure accountability into policy making. So this is kind of the context that I'd like to give. I'm happy to respond to any questions that that people have. Thank you. If everybody's still there.